Hi, I'm Charlie Redner. I'm traveling today with my neighbor and friend, Fred Emmerich. And let me tell you a little bit about Fred. I first met Fred about 7 years ago, and he was walking around with a manuscript in his hand. And knowing that I was a writer and a publisher, he asked me to help him publish his book, his memoir, about his childhood and his teen years. So I did. It's appropriately called Jungle Boy, and we'll talk more about that later. How long have you lived here in the village?
It is, this December it'll be 25 years.
You've lived in the village 25 years?
25 years.
And you played a little golf, I understand?
Yes, I've played golf for the last 20 years.
And were you a good golfer?
In my younger days, I had a 12 handicap.
That sounds good to me. And did you quit recently, or are you still playing?
No, I'm not playing with it. I became a full-time caregiver
Okay.
for my wife.
Gotcha.
And that's more important
well, of course,
than playing golf.
And golf does take up a lot of your time, doesn't it?
Yes,
when
it
you're
does.
playing that?
That's right.
So you've lived here 25 years, Fred. Tell me, where did you first move into the village, and where have you been since? The same location?
No, we've been at least 4 different gates. We started out in Gate 5 in Mariposa. We lived in Gate 11 for 11 years, and then we went from Gate 11, we moved to the Towers, lived there for 4 or 5 years, and that became an issue for Joanne. Then we decided, well, we're going back to a house, which we now move in Gate 3 on Ronda Mendoza, we are very, very happy there.
So with the free time you do have now, Fred, what do you do mostly?
My free time? Well, mostly I concentrate on intarsia. That's number 1 hobby. But in between, you can't work on that constantly. So in between, I learned how to do glass cutting. So I make glass windows, beautiful, different colors. And then we belong to a lot of clubs.
Such as?
Well, there's a couple of political clubs. I don't want to mention which ones. I belong to the Camera Club, and we belong to the RV Club. Oh yeah, RVing. We did that for years and years.
We're passing Restaurant 19. Have you been in there, Fred?
Yes, a few times, yes.
Lovely place, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, we're coming up on
Of all the things we've ever traveled, a motorhome is the best.
I had
the best
one for
way
about
to
10
see
years.
the country.
Yeah, I had one for 10 years too. Yeah, motorhomes are very, very comfortable. So what do you like about the village the most? 25 years, that's a long time. I don't think I know anyone else that's been here that long.
Well, I tell you, it's the most, as far as I'm concerned, it's paradise on earth.
It is. Look at this
If
beautiful clubhouse too. They just finished remodeling it.
Yeah.
It was opened this week, and it looks fabulous, doesn't it?
Yes. I was born in 1928. At 1930, my parents got divorced, and my mother met a new man, and he was an anti-Nazi. Of course, I didn't say my mother was Jewish. So anyway, he was on the hit list, so they had to leave immediately, if not sooner, because that's the first thing that rounded up all the anti-Nazis. Mm-hmm. But they were fortunate enough to, my mother had 4 children, 3 boys and a girl. Fortunate enough, she was able to put the 3 boys in 2 different orphanages. At that time, I was 3 years old when that happened. I was in the orphanage till 1939, which I was almost 10 years old, I assume. Yeah, or 11. They didn't have an orphanage for girls, so they had to take the girl, my sister, with them to Switzerland. But when they got to Switzerland, they had to give up the girl because they had to. In Switzerland, you can only stay for 2 years with money, and then you have to leave the country. Mm-hmm. So they decided to go to China. Okay. In the meantime, we were the it doesn't really matter. 9 years in the orphanage. So one day we got a notice, you're going to the Philippines. So where in the world is the Philippines? So we got ourselves an atlas, and we looked at it, and it was completely on the other side of the world. Mm-hmm. But somebody along the line, and I think there was the International Red Cross made all the arrangements for the passports, the visas, the monies, and all that. Because when we left, we had 2 suitcases. One was some clothes, and the other one we were not allowed to open, which was obviously money. Because if you have money, all of a sudden politics does not interfere. Everybody accepts money, and that's how we got out. But anyway, so we were. Now remember, the orphanage was just like I would say, like a penitentiary, but they treated us well. But we never left, never got in, never got out. Nobody ever visited. It was just us. You do not own anything, not a toy, nothing. Everything was one for all and all for one, which in a way is a good thing. This way, you didn't create any jealousy. We were 28 days on the ship. It started out in Genoa. And then halfway through, they having already trouble because Germany was invading Poland and all that area already. Right. So at that time we were in India. We got that far already, and the British were very concerned because it was an Italian ship.
Oh, really?
And so they thought they might take all the people off and dump them off in India, in Bombay. So we were really concerned. I mean, I didn't know what the hell was going on at the age of 10, but I got all excited about it. But anyway, it did not happen. They let us go through to Manila. Now, the ship had 3,000 passengers. Out of that, 100 were first class passengers, and we happened to be one of them. And all the rest of the 3,000 were all refugees, Jews, escaping to Shanghai. But the ship stopped first in Manila. I had no idea what my mother looks like. So there was maybe 200-300 people on the pier meeting all their friends and whatever. And there was one Caucasian lady there. And we said to ourselves, well, that has to be our mother. Who else would that be? And of course, so when we got down to the ship, she said, I'm your mother. And she thought we would hug and kiss her. But there was no feeling. If you were separated from your parents for so many years, no communication, never saw a picture, nothing. So, but anyway, we met her. And so she says, well, we're staying in Manila 2 more days. Then we're going to take an inter-island steamship. And I mean, it was an old tramp. And that's going to take another 8 days to go from Luzon to Mindanao. Right. Okay, so we dig that ship. Got to Mindanao. There's a thing called, the city we arrived was Davao.
I know it, yes.
Okay, so she says, well, we're not living here. I have a car downstairs. We're going to load the car up with gas and provisions, and then we're going to go 100 miles to the interior. There were no roads. It was just like a trail. And if you went over a bridge, somebody had to stand in front of the bridge and direct the car so there are no rails. It was just 2 boards.
Wow.
Had to go through and then the other side. So then after 100 miles, we stopped. He says, well, this is halfway where we're going. So we have a storage shed. We're going to put the car in. And now we have an ox cart with a bull. We're going to load all our provisions on the cart. Now we're going to hike in 35 miles into the jungle. Now, can you imagine the contrast coming from a well-developed city like Frankfurt going into the jungle where there was nothing? Just natives, snakes, cobras, you name it, huge monkeys. I mean, they were big, vicious. My parents managed to keep it for 2 years because they both got so deadly sick. Now, by that time, it was 1940 already. And we knew there was something happening with the war because, oh, by the way, my stepfather, I didn't say that, he was a spy, a double agent. And you see, this is why he knew exactly what was going on, And that was part of the reason why he had to leave Germany. Right. Because he was, giving out information.
Tell me what happened after the Japanese invaded the city of Davao.
Well, the Japanese literally flattened the city of Davao. And of course, we were there. And I got hit very badly with bomb shrapnels. It literally froze my body and my upper arm. I could not move anything. So the only way, we could not get any medication from the Japanese. So the only answer was the ocean, because the salt contents in the Pacific is a little bit stronger than on the West Coast here. So there was a lot of iodine in the water. It's a lot of iodine. So every day we went in the ocean. I submerged myself and cleansed the wounds that it didn't get any infection, which we did not. And then in 3 months' time, it was well enough so the infection stopped and the wound healed. So we could travel. We had to get away from the Japanese because as far as the Japanese were concerned, any white man has to be an American. They don't know the difference one nationality from another. And since my dad, I don't want to call him dad, but at that time you call him Henry and Liesel. Liesel was my mother and Henry, so if I refer to my stepfather, it's always Henry. Henry was still doing his work as a spy. He constantly disappeared. He was gone. He's there for a day, and 3-4 months he'll be gone, and then shows up. And he says, well, where are you? Oh, I went on a visit and saw some friends, because he could never identify himself as who he was. Anyway, we had to get away from the Japanese, so he decided the only way to do it, we have to figure an island which has no water, no sustaining stuff whatsoever. The only thing it had a lot of coconut trees, which was fortunate because coconut, you can drink the water, since there was no water, and you can eat the meat, which is very good, the soft meat, and when the coconut is ripe, the white of the coconut, the meat becomes very firm and has a lot of oil in it. So once we got to the island, there was a shack there, and we took the shack because there was nobody there. There was maybe 1 or 2 families lived on the whole island. The island was about 50 miles long and 20 miles across. There were not even any snakes. There were a few birds, and that was no monkeys, nothing. So it was definitely a very dense island. And the jungle was so dense that during the day the sun couldn't even penetrate. It was so dense. So he decided, well, we're going to have to do something about your arm. So he says, well, we're going to start physical therapy. I'm going to go through it pretty fast. So my arm eventually made that my arm was straight, hanging down. So that was good. So it means the muscle got strong enough to do that. Then he had to exercise my fingers because I could not move them. So we did that. So once I got that, I was a real skinny runt, because there was not much food. But he says you have to physically exercise. The island where we lived was a big cove. Because it is a big cove, all the current goes in the ground. Everything is on the ocean, comes into that cove. So to our good luck, 2 5-gallon cans of oil, of course they were empty, came in that. And that was perfect. So those cans for exercise. So we put a little bit of water in there, said now lift up your arms. And as months went on, with more water and then more water, and eventually lifted up higher and higher and higher till I could actually get it over my head. And that's how it becomes so strong, because of all that exercise and a lot of hiking.
Wow.
So now this was done, and now you have to learn how to write. So of course there was no paper or anything, so we used a bamboo stick or rattan stick, doesn't matter, and we was on the sand. So I want you to practice writing, write your name. And so far now we're going to do mathematics. They teach me how to do math, trigonometry, and the whole lot. He was a very smart person. But in the meantime, he always took off. Okay, so now how did we manage to eat? There was no food there. But since he was also an engineer, he says, that coconut has a lot of oil in it. That oil is a gold mine. So what we're going to do is we're going to break that coconut oil. We're going to take that meat out, and put it in a drum, and we make oil out of it. And then, of course, native drums, gives the message all over the natives. Nobody knows what they're talking about. The natives do. So we says, hell, if you want good oil, come to us. You bring us chicken, eggs, papaya, all the fruit and all the meat, anything you want, we'll give you oil.
It was cooking oil then?
Cooking oil, yeah. And it lasted for a good 6 months. Because the humidity is so high, everything rots. I mean, if you had a piece of paper or a cloth, so we never wore any clothes except a line cloth. And many times we did not either. If there was nobody there, we went. But anyway, we had all the food we want. So we lived on that island for 4 years. And anyway, because we were so good to the natives on the other side of the island decided, what can we give these people to thank them what they have done for us? So the natives, which were called the Moros, these are those, now they're what do they call them now? The Muslims. At that time, they were not Muslims. Anyway, they decided they're going to give us a brand new outrigger canoe. Bunker. It's 30 feet long. And because they're such good navigators, They taught me how to navigate with the stars, read the current, read the waves and all that. So we could navigate and go any place we wanted on the ocean, which we did. So one day we went out into the Straits of Mindanao, and God would help. A Japanese speedboat intercepted us. They said, "So what are you doing out here?" Of course, we couldn't talk Japanese, and they couldn't talk German. See, at that time, I only spoke German. I did not know. We learned how to speak Spanish. I spoke fluently Spanish, but not English. So they took us to the headquarters, and of course, we did there for hours until they finally found a Japanese educator person who could speak English. German. So he talked, "What are you doing here?" I said, "Well, we lived in Ireland for years. This is how I grew up. I'm a native here." And he says, "But do you know German? Are you really German?" I said, "Sure." "Now, do you know how to read German?" "Absolutely. Naturally." "And do you know how to write German?" "Of course." So he had me take the test, and I passed it and understood. But you see, the guy, after it was finished, he said, "I don't really trust you. I bet you're just making that up." He says, "Look, you can't squeeze water out of a rock. I tell you what it is, take it as it is. If you don't believe it, there's nothing I can do about it." He was 11 years old. That took a lot of guts to say all these things.
It certainly did.
So they took us back to our outrigger canoe and they let us go. Of course, from then on in, we never went way out in the ocean. So that was pretty good. So now it was almost in the 1946 when the American came back to the Philippines.
Came back.
MacArthur came back. I didn't see him, but I saw another. Because we knew already, because Henry had a crystal radio, and he got all the information he wanted, but he would never tell us, because he was very clever about these things. Well, it saved our lives. If I would have known anything, the Japanese would have squeezed us.
Absolutely.
And believe me, they know how to squeeze. They're pretty vicious people. But but anyhow, I didn't want to use that word. So how do we get back to the mainland? How do we identify ourselves with the Americans, who we are? So we went back into the Straits. So now the Americans were patrolling. Okay, so naturally they stopped us. And we see, waved our hands, and there was the Caucasians, and of course, how could we talk English? We couldn't talk to them. But like sign language, like the American Indians, house and whatever. And so that worked. So they rescued my parents. But at that time, my parents were deadly sick. I think if the war would have lasted another 6 months, I would have been dead. It would have really diarrhea, and he got that meat-eating disease on his leg. You really could. Can you imagine seeing those bugs eating away on it lively? That iodine in the ocean didn't do it. Would not kill him.
Wow.
And he put fire on it. Literally fire to kill all the bugs to stop the infection. Anyway, so the Americans picked us up and they took us to the American headquarters there, and they took care of their problems. And then, of course, he identified himself. And of course, that was checked with the CIA, and it was true that he really was an agent, that he did work for the United States. So we were treated beautifully, no problem. So we say, well, since the Philippines is getting its independence in 1948, it's time for us to leave. And the United States government told us, anytime you want to come to the United States, just go to the embassy and tell them you want to come and you're on your way. The only thing he said, you need a sponsor, because when you come to San Francisco, you have to have a place to stay, so you're not a burden on the on the state. He says that's not a problem. So when we came, we had $2,000. You remember those belts with the zipper in it? That's where we kept. That the American money was the only money which didn't rot. There was something in that. The chemical which did not, we had no pictures. We used to take pictures. Everything rotted, including all our clothes and everything. It's a good thing that they finally, we would have been running around naked before long, because the bugs and you cannot sleep on a mattress. You have to sleep on a rattan floor, because those bugs, this scorpions and the spiders and the cockroaches and all that stuff. But anyway. So we had to wait 2 years in Davao till the ship finally came. See, the ships didn't want to go to Davao because there was nothing to pick them up. But for some reason, they must have delivered something, and they had to go back to the States, and they took 12 passengers, a freighter. It took us 16 days to come to San Pedro. Because the ship was empty, so they had to take out a lot of water to bring the ballast down. And the ocean was so rough that we had to strap ourselves into the bunks, otherwise you roll out. Mm-hmm. Oh, I loved it. I love the rough sea. I was such a good sailor, I'm telling you. Nothing scared me. I mean, nothing. This is how I learned to get self-confidence and that sort of thing. Okay.
Wow, Fred, that's quite a story. Is that everything that's in Jungle Boy that we published for you?
Yes.
Wow.
More details.
A lot more details. That's unbelievable, Fred. Wow. I don't know where to go after that. I mean, you survived World War II, you were hidden, you ran away, you got safe in the jungle, and you came home. Wow.
That was my job, solving problems, big problems, you know, the space program, the computers, the making the chips. How do we make machinery to make the chips? And how do you get the program it? You had to program our own stuff. First you have to put on ticker tape, lime tape, and then you had to write it yourself. Because at that time, electricity was so uneven, because a computer cannot tolerate fluctuation. Wow. It goes crazy.
So you're a programmer now, and you're programming.
We had to do everything because it was never done before.
I keep telling you, you're a genius. You're a mechanical genius, Fred.
And that's how it became. It became to that.
Wow.
But I also, at the time when I was 20 years old, I said to myself, now, Fred, that you have a trade and you sell pretty good, make good wages, which I did. And my goal is to retire at the age of 55. Because at that time I wasn't married yet. In 20, because I was 22, I guess. No, 24. But that was my goal, and I did it. 55, I made enough money, set enough money aside. And then we decided to travel. That was our big thing. I want to travel. Mm-hmm. Okay, so we traveled. What we did is we bought a motorhome. We traveled with the motorhome. But we had some friends, which Joanne knew in Chicago. And she said, oh, I moved to Southern California. She kept in touch with all these people. He says, okay, so every time we couple go through California and go through Southern California, we're going to stop here and visit with you. So we did 4 days. We stayed here 4 or 5 days. He says, okay, because at that time they lived in Leisure World already. Laguna Woods now, Leisure World. Mm-hmm. And he says, oh, so we looked at some of the apartments and so forth. He said, oh, God, that's one of gorgeous. Mm-hmm. So we said, so we put some money down on one. He says, well, we'll see if we want it. But after we left, he says, you know, this is crazy. We have such a gorgeous life. Why would we want to live here with all these old people? I mean, that's kind of stupid to say, but at that time I was 55, and the people I met was in the 70s and 80s. That's a term. You can't correlate people too much age difference. But anyway, so we went out a couple of more years of travel, and he says, you know something? I think it's two things. You know, we haven't associated with Jews for many, many, many years. And she told us there's a lot of Jews who live in Laguna Woods. And I says, okay. So next time when we come back, which was in 1990, he said, we're going to find a place here and we're going to settle here. Because we did a lot of traveling already by then. Mm-hmm. We said, so sure. So we found a place in Mariposa on one of those 3-story buildings. And we bought it. It was very inexpensive. Things were cheap here then. Mm-hmm. And so that's where we started. Through them, because we, you know, otherwise we used to drive by, we saw that glow on the highway. Because at that time, Highway 5 was only a 2-lane, one coming and going. So it was nothing. But we liked it here, and you could see lots of possibilities, because they had all these amenities and all anything you want to do, it was here. We didn't have to travel all over the place, which was good. So anyway, so we lived here, and
life is good.
And life is heaven. I mean, you couldn't be. I cannot find a more gorgeous place than this. You know, one time we thought we wanted to go to Hawaii because of the weather, but you can't beat this weather here. Mm-hmm. Hawaii is always sun. This has little, sometimes it
Little
rains
break up.
here. Because remember, we got to remember, this is desert. You know, people
I
forget
know.
that this is desert. We used to be desert. Anyway, and so this is it.
This is it. Well, thank you, Fred. That's an interesting story. Wow.
Fred is an amazing artist, and some of these projects have taken over a year to complete. He's so full of positive energy, I had to find out what his secret is. What's your philosophy?
I don't know. I don't know what to say. Patience. Patience, I think, is the philosophy. And don't take anything so too serious. Just give it time and think about it. And if it doesn't work today, sleep on it, and then tomorrow you'll find the answer.
Tell me about this house. Where is this house?
This house is located in San Carlos, California. That's in Northern California.
And why did you pick this house?
Because it's an old railroad station which was built in 1864. And it's still there, and it's as beautiful as ever. Unfortunately, they're not using it as a railroad station anymore.
You basically made a 2-year commitment to this.
I have no limits. If it takes 3 years or 4 years, it doesn't matter. I'm going to finish it. And that's the important thing.
Did you pick it because it was going to be hard?
I picked it because I love the beauty of it. If you see it in real life, it's so gorgeous. So I took a picture of it, and I said, boy, I have to duplicate this. And I know this was very, very challenging, but that's me. I love challenging jobs.
So at night, are you thinking about this as far as what you're going to do the next day when you come in?
That's true. I have pretty well planned out I knew I was going to get this roughed in today, because this is the top part of the dome. And that was because it took 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 parts to make the dome.
It's difficult for most people to understand the kind of precision work that goes into this and the kind of time and effort and thinking. So this is pure joy for you, right?
It is absolute joy. And you have to have, it's joy, you have to have patience. If the thing breaks, don't worry about it. You can always make another one. All you have is time. That's why I'm retired. I got all the time in the world to do this.
And how is doing this detailed, complex, hard art? This is art, right?
This is art, and it's if you go from 1 to 10, this is a 10 plus.
How is this helping you thrive, that it's so hard and complicated?
Well, it is not hard, and then it's not hard for me at all.
It's not?
No, because all my life while I was working, I did very complicated work. And there was nobody there to tell me how to do it and when to do it and whatever. So you learn I've done this precision work for 35 years, so it's not a big deal on my part.
So it might be really hard for most people, but not hard for you.
That is correct. And it's not so difficult if they would only listen. You see, the problem, people start these projects, they think they'll have it done in a week. It doesn't take it. It's impossible.
For your age, you look really muscular.
Yes.
Would you say you're strong for your age?
Yes, very strong.
Where does your strength come from? Do you lift weights, or is it just
Yes.
from
Working hard.
working hard?
I have the only time I ever lifted weights. Remember when I told you when I got hurt?
Right.
When I was 11 years old, I used to work with lifting weights to strengthen my body. But I've worked hard all my life, so
Because most men start losing muscle, and you don't look like you've lost a lot of muscle.
I feel my grip.
It's like steel. Wait, I gotta do that again. Wow, mine's
Now
good too.
you put pressure on it.
Oh yeah, you have a grip of steel. Golden Gate Bridge, it's finally finished. You've been working over 2 years on it. How do you feel when you finally have finished something like that?
I feel it's very good. I mean, people see it, all of my co-workers or other people that can't believe it, because nobody else has ever done it here. Now it's just like the United States I made. I knew one person when I came here 25 years ago, I saw him do it. I said, oh, I'm going to do that someday. The thing what I also was very careful about, I used every rock from each state.
You did?
The natural stone from that state.
Wow.